love to continue this journey at Harvest Moon Studios by speaking to one of the artists who is living and creating inside this ecosystem Michael Peterson has built. To our listeners, stay with me because you're about to hear what this experience feels like from the other side of the microphone through the voice of someone who is being shaped, supported, and championed in real time. Let's welcome our next guest, recording artist and musician, Dave Ouzo Land. Hi, Dave.
Howdy.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you for having me.
Would you share a little bit about your background and who you are musically?
Sure. I'm a singer-songwriter, performing artist, recording artist. I started playing guitar when I was in 8th grade in a 8th grade guitar class that my parents pretty much forced me to take. It's true, because every time I saw a guitar, I would pick it up and pretend I could play it. And I needed a music class. And they said, you should take the guitar class. And I said, I can take guitar. I could figure out guitar anytime I want to, which of course I couldn't. But, when you're 11, you know everything, or 13 or however old I was. So they went out and bought me a guitar, signed me up for the class, and I was stuck. And you can't make this stuff up. The music room got broken into 2 weeks into the semester, and 3 guitars were stolen, and mine was one of them.
Oh, no.
That's what everybody said except me. I said, yes, I'm off the hook.
Oh, yeah.
Dead serious. No, they took me and bought me another guitar, and then I was screwed. At the end of that semester, I needed another elective. I didn't need any more music. But for my last elective, I signed up for the advanced guitar class on my own as my elective. I was hooked at that point. And after I got out of junior high, got into high school, got my first electric guitar,
all right,
which I bought from a buddy for $25. I think it came from Montgomery Ward's or something. It was one of those real terrible guitar. Eventually, I got into some better stuff and started playing with some people, and the rest is kind of my personal history. I just started performing in different bands with different people in different genres until I finally hit my thing. I eventually started playing in an oldies rock and roll band.
Okay.
And my brother was the drummer in that band, so we played together. It was pretty cool. And then, some years later, after that band kind of broke up, I continued playing solo for a long time before I hooked up with another band. And just kind of doing, figuring my way, and I didn't know exactly what I was going to do as far as my musical styling, but I was figuring that out, and I've kind of come on what I call now country-infused vintage rock and roll, is what I call it. And people ask me all the time, they say, well, so was that like the Allman Brothers? Or...
The first person I thought of was Tanya Tucker.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's closer.
Yeah,
but I get this
rock.
Allman Brothers 38 Special. I said, no, nothing like that. And so we'll describe you. And I said, okay, if you took the Rolling Stones and the Everly Brothers and Willie Nelson and Toby Keith and put them in a blender, that's me.
Oh, thank you for that. That is so descriptive.
So there it is. And I call it, like I said, country-infused vintage rock and roll. And I write my stuff in that same genre, the stuff that I'm writing and recording.
And how long have you been writing your own music?
I've been writing from early on, even in those early days in high school, I was writing. The songs weren't very good, but you know how that goes. Anytime you're doing something and you play it and you hear it and you listen to it, other people listen to it and give you pointers and whatnot, and you can't help but get better.
Absolutely.
Right. So I was never afraid to write stuff and just to throw it out there. And sometimes people like the songs, or sometimes I think they were just being nice. But some of the stuff, looking back on it, some of the stuff was actually kind of solid for the time. Other stuff was just terrible.
Yeah. But
it helped shape, the kind of stuff I wanted to do. And it helped me get better. And I've never been afraid to ask questions. So I figure if somebody, it's like you're playing sports almost, right? If you play with someone who's better than you, you can't help but get better. So anytime I saw somebody who was a better musician than I was, I would ask questions. And guitar players are a funny lot. And you hear these stories about how guitarists are always competing with each other. It's not so far from the truth. So I figured that if I ask a guitarist about something that he just played, I'm telling him that he's the dominant male in the room, right? Or the dominant whatever, because obviously he knows more than I do about this.
And he's appreciating that you're listening.
Oh, yeah. And he's appreciating that he's alpha, because I'm asking him for help.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So, I've never run across somebody who didn't want to talk to me about questions that I had. So I've been asking, most of my life. I try to be a sponge and pick up all this stuff. And very early on, when I first started playing outside of the guitar class, when I really started playing on my own, the game was everybody that played guitar, it was like you learn some chords, you can strum some chords, play some songs, and you are a quote unquote rhythm guitarist at that point until you're good enough to be a lead guitarist. And that was sort of the thing. That was the hierarchy. Mm-hmm. You went from knowing nothing to knowing something to being a rhythm guitarist to being a lead guitarist. And somewhere along the line, I found out that rhythm guitar was kind of its own thing. And it was completely different than lead guitar and sort of a dying art form. And I started listening to people that I really admired their playing. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to be the best rhythm guitarist that I can be. And it's funny when I talk to people, say, well, yeah, I'm a rhythm guitarist too. It's like, you play around the campfire. That doesn't make you a rhythm guitarist, because it's actually a thing. And
Sure.
people don't realize that. And you listen to some styles of music and you can hear where it would be great to have a rhythm guitar in there, or piano. A lot of times they'll use the piano as a rhythm instrument as well, and it sort of bridges that gap between the lead instruments and the vocals and the rhythm section, which would be your bass and your drums. So that's what I started doing, is working on that, and it has helped me so much when I started playing solo. And I've been playing solo right now since pre-COVID. I haven't done any band stuff since then, so it's all been solo stuff.
Who are your guitar heroes?
Oh boy. Keith Richards, Buddy Holly, Brian Setzer. These are guys that they play such great rhythmic stuff, and it's just, I've been a big fan. I mean, Jimi Hendrix, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But not so much for his lead style, but his innovation, incredible. Just the stuff that he came up with, when you think that he probably didn't know a whole lot in compared to what a lot of the guys that have been educated about music and gone to school and studied. But the things he came up with just as an innovator is just so far ahead of his time. And Buddy Holly, another one. These guys died way too young. And I always wonder, like, what could they have done if they'd lived? A lot of people don't realize Buddy Holly's whole career spanned 1.5 years.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
so you
amazing.
think about that, 18 months, everything he did that we know of, and it's crazy to think about what could he have done, given him 18 years instead of 18 months.
Right.
And it's that kind of thing. It just always boggles my mind. But I figure, you know what? My contribution is just as valid as anybody else's. So anything that I do, I have people come up and this is the biggest, flattery for me when people ask me, how did you play that? That's so cool. If people come up and ask me, they'll say, I'm listening to what you're doing there and I hear like 2 guitars playing. And I say, thank you very much. That's really hard to do. And I've worked really hard at it.
You have a lot of experience, and you've been at this since said you were 11?
Like 13, actually.
Yeah.
13 when I picked it up.
So in that vein, I'm thinking you could do what you want anywhere. You could have chosen any studio home. Right. So what made you say, oh yeah, this is my spot. This is where I want to create Harvest Moon Studios?
That's a great question. I'll tell you, this is such a fun story. And this comes up every now and again. Okay. Michael used to have, Michael Peterson, who owns, you just interviewed Mike. Everybody knows who Mike is now, right? He had a DJ company, and he used to do, he would DJ for weddings. And I was working for 2 different catering companies as a bartender. And I would bartend at weddings, and that's how we met. And we got to talk. And there'd be times when I'd go over and hang out at the DJ booth with him and just kind of BS with him. Or times when, he'd put on a song and come over to the bar and we'd talk. And we got to know each other. And then eventually I was managing this restaurant in town. And he came over and said, hey, you know what? I just opened up a recording studio. So the owner of the restaurant and I came over, and he had this like open house, showing people, and it was this place, and it was compared to what he's doing now, it was so archaic, but it was so cool at the time, right? It was kind of primitive.
How long ago was that?
Oh man, this had to be in the 90s, late 90s.
Oh wow,
it's been a long time.
Yeah,
right, and I think, or maybe it was early 2000s. Anyways, in that time frame. So we're talking, at least 20 years ago. And when I first decided, and we'd get together and talk, and he was telling me that he's going to be bringing artists in to record and do this stuff. And I said, you know what, maybe we should talk. And at some point I was pretty much ready. I had a band and we were doing some original stuff. And I said, I'd like to record some things. And Mike was my first choice because I'd recorded with other people before. And it was, the experience was never great, sometimes, better than others. But I really was looking for a fresh start, and I really liked Mike, and we got along, and we clicked as far as the whole music thing, and we had similar interests and whatnot, when we talk and stuff. So I thought, this is like, why not? So I came down and we talked about it, and he said, okay, I'd love to record you. And I just had this crazy idea to do a live album. And
Really?
he was telling me all the pitfalls of doing a live album. And he said, because, it's really difficult to control a venue, sound-wise.
Yes.
And I said, but I've heard some really good live albums. And he said, yeah, but what you don't see are the 2 semis of gear outside, because to control that venue, and he had all these things, you have to think about this, the temperature, how many people are in the room, how big the room is, and, things like that. And everything that happens in that room changes, the sound quality, and you have to be able to adjust for that. And you can't do that just going in there with a recorder and a microphone. And I said, well, what if you brought the audience into a controlled environment? And he said, what do you mean? And I pointed at his sound room, and he said, you want to bring an audience into the studio? I said, yeah, why not? He said, I'm not sure it's ever been done. And I said, well, I'm all about taking the road never traveled. So he put his thinking cap on and came up with ways that we could do that. And with so many live mics in the room, it's really difficult to keep the bleed from happening between instruments and vocals and audience and the whole thing. And he figured out a way to baffle stuff, and we did it. And even today, I was talking with someone that we're doing a video project coming up, and she said, when I first heard the live album, I was blown away by the incredible sound quality. And that's all about Michael. He took my crazy idea and brought it to fruition. He made it a reality. And I thought, this is my guy at that point. So yeah, so I was sold. After that, that was my first endeavor with Mike, and first thing, out of the gate, I said, I want to do a live album.
What an ambitious!
And he looked at me like I was crazy.
Project.
And it was good and bad, because I came up with this crazy idea and it worked. So after that, I had some crazy ideas, and he rolled with it, and they didn't work, but it was like, he thought, well, this guy's track record is not bad. His crazy ideas kind of, they pan out. That was the best one, was that live album. So after that, we started working more, and we've just developed this great relationship in the studio. And I love working with him. I will say that. He's
20 years later, I would have to agree.
Yeah, the first one we did was actually the live album was in 2014. So we're 11 years later now, and we're working on another project right now. We've got 4 under our belt, and we're going to do another one. Should be out in 2026. This new one that we're doing.
How many songs do you think will be on it?
This one will be 6 songs.
Okay.
I'm doing a 6-song EP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was going to do a full album, but I'm changing kind of the format of what I'm doing a little bit and scaling it back to where what I want to do is something like my acoustic stuff, and just the way I write the songs and play them right now. I want to do that, but enhance it with bass and drums and some additional vocals. I don't want to have all the instrumentation that we've used in the past. I want to keep it kind of bare bones. So I thought, I don't want to do a full album of that, but there are songs. We were going to do a full album of 14 songs, and I pulled out 6 of them that I think are going to work really well for this concept.
Great.
And, Michael's on board, and he's he's a visionary. He sees things and says, oh, well, what we can do is this and this. And it's like, so cool. So cool.
So I've caught you right before your next session. Before you begin your session today, what are you carrying with you emotionally, creatively, or spiritually as you step into this recording experience?
You know what? Every time I walk in, I come in very optimistic. I feel like, for one, I just feel like there's nothing that can stop me. I come in and it's like, I feel like I'm walking into my home.
I love that.
It's my comfort zone. I get in here and I love it. And we have developed such a great relationship. And when we first started, it was difficult for me to take criticism about, my songs, because they're very personal when you write something.
Absolutely. They're like your kids.
Exactly. But once I got over that hurdle in my mind and started listening. There were a couple of times, and people have asked me, said, has he ever told you something that, was completely out of the realm of what you were thinking? It's absolutely. And a couple of songs, notable ones that I could point out and say, this song and this one in particular. One song I wrote about my daughter when she was a little baby. And it's kind of in the vein of like a Cat's in the Cradle kind of thing.
Okay.
But it was, instead of looking back, it was looking forward, but imagining me in 20-something years looking back, even though it was like that was all in the future.
I love that.
But that was the concept of the song. And I wrote it, and it was for me, really. But we put it on an album. And for me, just to be on the album, it was sort of filler. It wasn't really a song that I really wanted to delve into. And we recorded it. And then he asked me, he said, so is that how you want that song to sound? I said, what do you mean? He said, you're happy with that? I said, well, for what it is. He said, I think it could be so much better. And I said, really, what do you got? And he said, I want you to, and back in the day, I did some shows with Don McLean, American Pie guy, back in the day. So he knows I have a connection there. So he said, I want you to channel Don McLean on this song. Okay. What would Don McLean do? I said, really? And he said, yeah. Okay. And I said, all right, I'm going to take that under advisement, because this song was personal to me, but as far as the recording of it, that wasn't. I really didn't care. I just wanted to put it on the album. So I went home and I spent a lot of time kind of thinking about that and playing around with it. And it took some weeks, and I came in here one day and I said, you know what? I think I got something. He said, is it ready to hear? I said, not yet, but I'll let you know. It should be soon. And the next week I came in here and said, okay, I got this. And I played it. And he said, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh.
And it's one of those songs. Now people say that I listen to that song and it gives me chills, and people tell me, oh, it makes me cry. And that wasn't there before. And just his whole concept of channel what Don McLean would do. And he has a very specific style, Don McLean.
Just opens your mind.
Right. And he does things, and he'll play something, and then all of a sudden everything just drops out, and then he'll do this real soft vocal, and then build the guitar back up, and say, okay, we can do that. And that's what I did, and it worked. It's crazy. So I realized then that I don't know everything about this business. I'm far from it, but there are other people that know things I don't know, and there are people that hear things I don't hear, and I happen to be working with one. So I need to open my mind and take what he says, with the concept that maybe he's going to make this better if I just listen. And that was a jumping off point for me. And we've just gotten, our relationship in the studio is so much better. And he'll tell me something. I'll say, yeah, you know what you're doing here, blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, oh, okay, I'll try it. And there's times when I said, I don't hear it, but okay, I'll try it. And then afterwards say, okay, you were right. So it's nice to have a second set of ears, especially somebody who's as incredible in the studio as Michael is. He really is. And I've said it before, and guitar player that has worked with us a few times. First time I brought him in here, Michael said, don't lose that guy. He's the best guitarist I've ever recorded. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to lose him. He's one of my best friends. We've known each other since we were kids. I'm just fortunate, to still have him in my life. And he's now, gone on to other things, bigger and better. But he still makes time to come in and record with us, and that's lovely. But the two of us have talked about it and said, what is it, about Mike that that jumps out at you? And we both came up with the same thing. Said he hears things that nobody else hears. And there's things, we'll listen to something in post-production. He'll say, oh, we got to go back and there's something blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, no, I don't want to hear that. And he'll go back and he'll point it out. So, wow, how did you even hear that? It was so minute, but it jumps out at him. And it's incredible. It's incredible to work with him and see that kind of stuff happen. Then at the same token, I'll be sitting here and he'll be flustered about something. And I'll say, is that light supposed to be on, that switch right there? And he's like, oh, God, I didn't even see that. So I noticed the simple stuff.
Sometimes we get so close to things and we can't see them, right?
Right. So it's nice to have, that second set right?
Lights.
It's perfect. But yeah, he notices the really complicated things. I notice the real simple stuff. So, but it's okay. We're a good team.
So on many levels, you're living a lot of, I'm an independent musician too, and you're living the dream. I have a day job, and you are playing full time
and
doing this full time. What would you say to people that are not yet doing that? And what are your tips for staying so passionate? Because you sound really still so enthusiastic and fresh and passionate.
I am. And I have to say that when I started doing this full time, I realized what a grind it is. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's not always, the glamour that you think it is. And there's sometimes I'm living, month to month. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay my bills next month. But at the end of it, I think about it and say, you know what? I can't see myself doing anything else. It's just that I'm that passionate about it, and it's in my blood, and I can't get it out. It's like a disease that there's no cure for, right? So I guess for people that are thinking about doing this, just remember that it's a struggle. You have to put the time in. You have to put in a lot of work. Mm-hmm. It's not easy. I had a really great conversation with Phil Everly from the Everly Brothers. I went to one of his shows. My ex-wife and I went to a show of the Everly Brothers, and it was I think it was like Caesar's Tahoe, and so it was in the casino. We were hanging around in the casino afterwards, and he was there playing blackjack. So I said, we got to go say hi to him. So we waited until he got done, and he got up from the table. So I walked up and said, Mr. Everly, we were just at your show, and this kind of said, I'm a songwriter, and, just wanted to say hi and how much I really enjoy you guys. And they've always been a big influence. They were broken up before I was around, but I knew their music and I loved it. So when they got back together, it was like the best day of my life, because I got to go see them. I idolized these guys, but they were broken up and I couldn't see them. And then all of a sudden I could, and it was very cool. But just talking to him then, and he told me some of the best advice I ever got, I think. He said, what's going to make it in this business is tenacity. He said, you don't write a song and then sit back and it becomes a hit and then you get the house on the hill and all this. He said, unfortunately, it happens. Like 1 in a million times it happens. So people think that's the norm, and it's not. No. He said, you have to get it. He said, how many songs have you written? And I said, that I'm proud of? And he said, no, how many songs have you written? He said, let me ask you this. Have you written 100 songs? And I said, I don't know. Maybe. He said, if you've written 100 songs, I'm proud of you. If you haven't written 100 songs, write 100 songs. If you have, write 100 more. He said, think of all the songs that Gershwin did. He says, now imagine all the songs that Gershwin wrote that we never heard. And I was like, wow, that's profound. He said, yeah. He says, all the songs that he just didn't think were good enough. So, but he kept at it all the time, kept at it. So he said, that's what's going to make it in this business, is staying after it. And I never forgot that. And that's what I figured. I want to do this. So I'm going to stay after it. So through the good and the bad. And I've had some great times, and I've had some rough times. But at the end of the day, I figured this was my day. Whether it was a crappy day or a great day, it was my day. And I chose this. And that's a beautiful thing for me. I got to do this. I got to choose that I'm doing this. I know a lot of people that are doing jobs they hate, but they need the paycheck. And they're married to their job, or they're married to their mortgage. And I'm just not in that boat. I figure, you know what? I do what I love. And sometimes it's a struggle, and other times it's not. And I'm just, that's why I guess I'm so passionate about it, is because it's my thing. And I got to choose it. And I get to make people smile. I had somebody just the other day come up at one of my shows, and as he was leaving, he said, thank you for doing what you do. He said, you change people's lives. And I was like, that's the nicest thing I've heard all day. Thank you. He said, I'm serious. He said, people love you so much. And it's like, great. I'm like, that. Okay, I'm going to bring a tear to my eye.
That's everything.
Right? But it's nice when somebody, and that's not someone I don't even know, comes up and tells me that. That's pretty great. So if I'm making a difference in one person's life, it's not lost on me that I get to do this. It's pretty special, and I love it. So I guess to answer your question, if somebody is ready to do this, they've got to just go for it. None of this, do a little bit here, a little bit there. Don't kid yourself. It's like anything else. You want to be a great athlete. So you want to run marathons and you go out and run a mile once a month. You're not going to be running marathons anytime soon, right? It's the same kind of thing. I used to do a lot of guitar lessons back in the day. I owned a music store and used to do some guitar lessons. And that was the thing. The students, the ones that tell me, oh, I want to be this, I want to, be on the big stage and all that. But their parents say they don't practice. And so, well, then you're not going to get there. Then I have other parents say, I have to threaten them to get them to put the guitar down.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, you've got to do your homework or you've got to come eat dinner, but they won't put the guitar down. Those are the ones that are going to be something someday because they're so passionate about it at a young age and they're just into it. And I love that. But there's others that, and I think music is probably its own worst enemy because of things like MTV and VH1. And
I miss MTV.
Right? But you know what? When people would watch these videos, it looks like it's so simple.
Yes.
And I guess it is because these guys have put in 10,000 hours
to
make it look simple.
Exactly.
But people think I can pick up a guitar and play anytime.
The reason it looks so easy is the hundreds and thousands of hours they spent getting it right.
It's like Joe Montana didn't wake up one morning and say, you know what I think I'm going to do this year? I'm going to play some football, win the Super Bowl. Didn't happen.
No.
Had a long, distinguished career. He had a career before college that none of us knew about. Right. And he was passionate about it all the time. Right. And
we drill it until it becomes muscle memory.
Exactly. And they're so good at it because they put so much time and energy and effort into it.
And it's worth it.
It is. And it's the same thing with music. But nobody looks at an athlete and says, oh, this is simple. But they look at musicians and say, oh, how hard could it be?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So if somebody is really interested in getting into this, you've got to realize that there's a big commitment. And you'll spend, hours a day sometimes practicing. And if you don't, you're not going to get to that level where you want to be. And that's the thing. If you really are serious about it, be serious about the commitment that it's going to take.
Well, Dave, Ouzo Land,
yes, ma'am.
I really appreciate talking to you, and I'm sure you've inspired some of our listeners.
I hope so. If I inspired one person, it was a good day.
Hey, I'm going to get Michael to maybe play one of your songs if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely.
You want to pick the song?
Oh, boy.
Tell us what we're going to hear.
You know what? Let's do. There's a song that Michael is really, really very fond of.
Okay.
And it's a great story. A lot of my songs have personal connections, and this particular one, I basically created a story and then wrote a song about it. And it was about a guy. I'm driving to a gig, and I'm down on Highway 580 in Livermore, California, and I'm driving along, and there's two bikers next to me. And they were dressed, they were like the stereotypical bikers. They had the vests on and the cool helmets and the cool shades, and they were, tattoos and the whole thing. And I thought, all these people on the road, how many people wish they could be those guys for a day? Like this guy right here with the big furry vest, looks like something, right out of a movie. How many people driving here on their way to somewhere they don't want to be wish they could be that guy? Just trade places for a day. Because of, the bikers, I'm thinking about it and said, they're kind of like the modern day cowboys. They live life on their terms, right? And people admire that because of the freedom. But at the end of it, it's like, oh, I don't want to do it all the time.
Right.
But I would love to do it just for a day. I would love to switch places with that guy. So I was on my way to this gig, and by the time I got to the gig, I'd pretty much written the lyrics for the song. It just kind of flowed, but I created a story about this guy. And said, okay, so he's the modern day cowboy, so that motorcycle is his horse.
All right.
So I wrote a song called I Wish I Had a Horse.
Okay. And
it's kind of a metaphor about just wishing you could be in someone else's shoes just for a minute, just to feel the freedom that they feel. And there's constraints, of course, when you do that, right? And people don't want to do it because there's things that, aren't so romantic about it, but other things really are.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So the song's called I Wish I Had a Horse.
I wish I had a horse. I'd be the king of the range, baby, just like that. I wish I had a horse. Or I could saddle up and ride the drop of a hat. I wish I had a horse. I could ride all night, I'd ride all day. I'd be the Lone Ranger on a silver away. If I had a horse. I wish I had a gun. Big old coat hanging off of my hip. I I wish I had a gun. I wouldn't think twice about taking no lip. I wish I had a gun. I'd be Jesse James or Billy the Kid. Folks would pay attention to whatever I did. If I had a gun. Now it might sound silly, it might seem dumb. You gotta live until the living is done. I could kick up my heels, let down my head. I drink out of the bottle, I just don't care. I had a truck. Four-wheel drive's gonna set me free. I wish I had a truck. Nobody's gonna build a fence around me. I wish I had a truck. I could get out of Dodge before the light turns red. Everything I own right there in the bed. If I had a truck, I'd fill it up at the break of day with a case of tequila. I'd be on my way with my old guitar and a big old gun, bottle of Ouzo. Gonna have me some fun. And beer, you gotta have beer. And a horse. I wish I had a horse.